Good morning. Happy Thursday to you. Welcome back to our morning devotional. This morning we're looking at what is the cornerstone of the Christian faith, the key event of the Passion Week that explains why we still exist and why we continue to worship. This morning we're talking about the resurrection. Now, word of warning, starting next week we're going to look at Jesus' words from the cross and eventually come back again full circle to the resurrection. But keeping these two devotional series separate, I wanted to end where it appropriately ends during the Passion Week, and that is on Easter Sunday morning. If you have your Bibles handy, go ahead and open to the book of Matthew, chapter 28, and we'll read from there, and then we'll actually talk about various resurrection accounts from among all four Gospels. But Matthew chapter 28, read with me starting at verse 1. Now, after the Sabbath, toward the dawn of the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And behold, there was a great earthquake. For an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. And for fear of him, the guards trembled and became like dead men. But the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Jesus who was crucified. He's not here, for he is risen, as he said. Come, see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead. And behold, he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him. See, I have told you." So they departed quickly from the tomb with great fear and great joy, and they ran to tell his disciples. And behold, Jesus met them and said, "Greetings." And they came up and took hold of his feet and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee, for there they will see me." So there's the Matthew account. It includes some of the well-known elements, the women going to the tomb on what we now know as Easter morning. The Sabbath is over. When it ended at sunset on Saturday, it was too dark to go traipsing around a boneyard, around a cemetery. So they waited till first thing Sunday morning, and they went to the tomb of Jesus to finish preparing the body for burial. What they see when they get there, of course, is life-changing. It's earth-shattering, literally an earthquake, angel, guards that have fainted and passed out, the angel speaking to them, the empty tomb. All these things swirl around in their heads as they try to process and make sense of what they're observing and seeing. But perhaps the greatest of the claims there is he's not here, he's risen. He is not here. He's not dead. He's not where you thought he'd be. It's not ended the way you thought the story ended on Friday afternoon. He's been resurrected. He's been raised from the dead. And now go tell others about it. That is arguably the greatest truth claim in human history. That the Messiah has come. That he has died for the sins of others. That he has now been buried and raised from the dead 3 days later. But as we look at the stories about how the various people encountered this news, how they reacted, what they did when they responded to it, kind of reflects to us the way many people today also respond to the good news of the resurrection as well. For example, if you want to take a note, mark this down for later reading, you could look at the gospel accounts in the book of John of the resurrection. There we find the story of Peter and John. They've been told by the ladies that Jesus is raised from the dead, and they've sprinted back to the tomb to see for themselves. When they get there, they can't find anything. They can't find what they're looking for. They're looking for a body in the tomb. And when they get there, of course, they're looking for the wrong thing. And when Peter plunges into the tomb, even though John beat him there in a foot race, Jesus isn't there. He came looking for a dead man, and Jesus was gone. Next account in the book of John, also there in John chapter 20, is the story of Mary Magdalene, who's there in the tomb garden trying to figure out what happens. She represents for us those people who don't like what they find when they go looking for Jesus. See, Peter and John went looking for the wrong thing. They went looking for a dead body. Mary is looking for the wrong answer. She's trying to make sense of what has happened. She still doesn't get it. She's waiting in the garden, shocked, uncertain of what to do with the information that she's heard and seen. And so when she sees a gardener, she asks him, "Tell me where you put him." She hasn't believed what's been told. She wants to know where he is. And so she asks the gardener, "Where'd they bury him? Where'd they hide him? Let us go and we'll take care of the body." And so, like the others, she doesn't get it. She's looking for the wrong thing. In this case, she's looking for the wrong answer. And it doesn't line up with her perception of reality. Not yet, anyway. If you turn your Bibles to the book of Luke, Luke chapter 24, we find another account of the resurrection. There in Luke 24, we find an example of some who just straight up quit looking. Peter and James and John and the other disciples, they're hiding in the upper room. The ladies have gone to the tomb to prepare the body for the rest of its days, if you will, in the tomb, to sit there until it rotted. Luke 24 describes the story of a couple of disciples, we don't know who they are, who've given up on it all, disappointed, crushed by what has happened in Jerusalem on Friday. They've given up, and now on this Sunday, they're walking home, and they're on the way to the Emmaus. They've quit looking for Jesus. In fact, they're looking for nothing. And so when Jesus, the resurrected Lord, appears to them, they don't even recognize him for who he is because they're not looking for him. This is a stranger. A stranger in their minds, strangely disconnected from all the major events of the last several days. And so the events are still in their mind, but they're still interpreting everything in light of Friday, in light of the fact that they saw him dead, that they know they took the body down and it was buried. And so they didn't even look for Jesus on that morning and didn't recognize him when they saw him. If we were to jump back to Matthew chapter 28, after the ladies have gone and told the disciples, we find all the disciples in the upper room locked in, still waiting, trying to figure out what's going on. This group of people represent those who don't believe what they don't want to hear. Not the disciples in the upper room. They've heard and they're trying to figure it out. I'm talking about the Jewish authorities who heard from the Roman guards, and that version of the story doesn't line up with what they want to hear. They don't want to believe Jesus is alive, and so they concoct a story to cover it up, to conceal it. One that probably ultimately would have cost the Roman soldiers their lives. See, the Jewish authorities were looking for something else. They were looking for the whole problem to go away, and here it is 3 days later. He's dead, and even now he won't go away. Now, back to the guys in the upper room. John chapter 20 tells us about them as well. There they are in the upper room. Jesus appears to them. They see him, they react, but one of the disciples is not with him that day, our friend Thomas. When Thomas shows up later after that particular scene is over and they tell Thomas, "You're not going to believe what's happened," they were right. He didn't believe it because Thomas represents those who won't accept what they can't see for themselves. They won't believe others. They've got to know personally for themselves. Problem is, Thomas was looking for the wrong proof. Thomas was logical, practical. He wanted to see Jesus. He wanted to touch him for himself and wouldn't believe until he could. That's why the next story in the Gospel of John brings us all to a close, because this time when Jesus shows up in the upper room, Thomas is there. And now Thomas represents those who found what they're looking for. When Jesus comes to him and reveals himself to Thomas, he gives Thomas the opportunity. Here are the wounds. You want to touch him? Do so. And Thomas, now encountering the risen Lord, recognizing that all that he heard is true, recognizing that Jesus is in fact raised from the dead, everything changes for him. And this is Thomas's response, and I pray it's ours this morning as well. This is what Peter says about the encounter later, but it's exactly representative of what Thomas's response was in the upper room when he says, "I don't need to see or touch now." This is what Peter says about it all. This is from 1 Peter 1:8. "Though you have not seen him, you love him. And though you do not see him now, you believe in him and rejoice with joy inexpressible, filled with glory." See, as we've been thinking about these people who've responded negatively to Jesus, they represent one way you can respond to the truth claims of the resurrection. There are those who can't find what they're looking for. They're looking for the wrong thing. Today, those are the seekers who want some sort of spiritual moment, but Jesus and a tomb and resurrection, that ain't it. There are those who don't like what they find. Mary Magdalene was kind of our representative there because she was looking for the wrong answer. Today, these are those feelers, those who are waiting until something feels right, something that lines up with their version of reality. The resurrection is not going to do that for them either. There are those on the road to Emmaus, those who quit looking altogether. They were looking for nothing. They represent so many today in our society who are hopeless. The search got too hard for them. They've been disappointed too many times, disappointed in religion, disappointed in the church, maybe even disappointed in what they found out about Jesus. And so they quit looking. They quit trying. They're just hopeless, heartache, and they're heading home. Then we also talked about the Jewish authorities, those who don't believe what they don't want to hear. Of course, they represent those in our own culture who are skeptical. They know the claims. They know the facts that we say have happened. They don't care that there are no witnesses to the fact that Jesus didn't rise from the dead. They don't care that there's no evidence from the Romans or the Jewish authorities kind of debunking the myth of the resurrection. They know all that, and it doesn't mean anything because that's not what they want to hear. And then, of course, you've got Thomas, who represents those who can't accept what they can't see. Today, those are the doubters. Those are the ones who want to ask, how do I know that it'll be good for me? What if I'm wrong? What if I've misunderstood all this? And so rather than believing something, they choose to believe nothing. The correct response is Thomas's response that second time, when he encountered the risen Lord, when his seeing became believing, and he didn't need anything else. That's when Thomas said, "You are my Messiah. You are the risen Lord." Let's look at his words real quickly. John chapter 20. When Thomas is offered the opportunity, Thomas answered, "My Lord and my God." He understood the resurrection proved all that Jesus ever claimed to be, and Thomas claimed him as his Messiah. "My Lord and my God." Jesus answered to him, "Have you believed because you've seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen, yet believe." I pray this week, as we're getting closer and closer to the celebration of Easter, that you've encountered the risen Lord in the Scriptures, that you've encountered him in your heart, that he's changed your life, that you are those who are blessed, who have not seen and yet believed, because he is your Lord and your God. As Peter says in 1 Peter again, may this be true of you this morning. Though you do not see him now, you believe in him, and you rejoice with joy inexpressible, and you're filled with glory. That's my hope and prayer for you, and that's our hope and prayer for our church on Easter morning. That's our hope and our prayer for all that we encounter as we tell them about the risen Lord, the greatest truth claim in all of history.